Hi, it's Professor Demersion here. I wanted to take a moment to discuss the Parenti paper in relationship to the According to Jim television show. Just that one little section to just really underscore. A lot of you guys did a good analysis of that, but I kind of missed some of the bigger points that I wanted to make, and I wanted to make sure that you really understood what I was trying to get at. Also, I want to apply some of these same ideas to a TV show like your critical viewing, just to give you a kind of increased example of what I'm looking for that as well. So here's the scene denied.
I lost an eye. Yeah, well, yesterday I lost my keys. It's still denied. Number 82? 82, that's me. That's me. Excuse me.
Okay, so that's the scene that I wanted us to take a look at. The thing that I wanted you to see when it comes to ideological content is that the thing that is ideological content is this kind of assumed point of view. It's the thing that seems natural, that's not questioned. It's the natural position that the worldview of the TV show is coming from. And in this case, the idea here is that it's never questioned that we should have a for-profit healthcare uh, institution. In other words, that there's every incentive for our healthcare system, for insurance companies to deny claims for people. Okay, so that's presented as natural, that we have a system that here's the person that's injured, and yet they are denied their insurance, and it's presented as normal, whereas that we are never questioned why we have a system that every there's every reason for the the company here. I'm trying to get it on our, and many of you guys did a good job pointing out the stereotypes of this character here. But what you kind of missed often is that we have this idea that it's totally fine to have a corporation where it's 100% in their interest to deny as many of their customers the service they're supposed to be providing. And that's this thing that if you start to think about it, you're like, wow, that's insane. And at the same time, it's this totally natural position that we're put in. And in fact, with the laugh track, we're kind of encouraged to take the side of the insurance company. It puts us in the subject position to agree with the insurance company. So it's these assumed beliefs. It's never clearly stated that we live in the best type, this for-profit system is the best system. There's never a person that comes out and says this in the TV show. It's this assumed belief system that's presented as natural. Okay? And that's the kind of idea that whether you agree with this, whether we should have a for-profit or a non-profit system that's a government-based universal healthcare system, that doesn't matter what I'm talking about right now. What I'm trying to get you to see is how this material is ideologically present without being present. Okay, and that's kind of encoded in that framework of how this is presented to us is encoded into the narrative, and it's tough to see because it's assumed, and there's a laugh track and we're going along, we're following the story, but what's presented as natural is the stuff that we want to kind of start to see more clearly. The other thing that I wanted to get at was this idea of the status quo, and there is a gentle critique of this system here, but the thing that I wanted us to look at is what you want to think about is how does the story end? This character in the end takes mercy on Jim Belushi's character, and she approves his request, and everything is fine. And you know what? There's a heart in the system after all, and there's a soul in the system, and that through this kind of thing working out in the end, this narrative supports the status quo, that yes, this is the best system that we have, and even though things get bumpy sometimes, it actually is totally a fine system. In other words, you don't see at the end of this show something that would be opposite the status quo, is that Jim here, maybe he comes back, okay, maybe he comes back to this area and says, and starts to lead a protest that we should not be denied our the kind of benefits that we're kind of paying for. Okay, and so if this story takes a turn where he starts to protest for-profit healthcare, then we have something that's against the status quo. And I want you to see how through, always pay attention to those conclusions, how something ends up, because that really tells you something about how the themes that the directors want you to kind of consider, even if they don't want you to think about it too deeply. Okay, so that's how this is operating here. So even a show that on the surface has no political content, you would never think that According to Jim is a political show. What I want you to see is that every show is political. When something supports the status quo, it is a political it's a political move. It is supporting a particular worldview, and so that's the thing that I really want you to see. Now, I want us to kind of take a quick look at another clip here. Also, just as a funny aside, our actual system is way less humane than this. You'll never have a face-to-face encounter with anyone at an insurance company. It's this kind of endless claim that you'll never actually get to talk to someone. Anyhow, that's just a funny aside, that this whole fictitious place where you could actually, like there's an insurance company that you can actually go to, is hilarious. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to look at is more along the lines of what you would be looking at for your critical viewing essay, and this is not a TV show that you can use for your critical viewing essay. It's Hawaii Five-0, but it's the excerpt that I want to show you, that just I kind of want to walk through how you would kind of use this to argue one of the points here. So here's my Parenti bullet points, and I understand what he means by make-believe media. It makes us believe a certain worldview, like that for-profit, healthcare is the way to go, just like we saw before. And it can work with comedies and dramas, even though he's focusing on dramas. So as I'm reading this, I'm watching this TV show. Let's just kind of play this scene here. This person that's tied up is a criminal that they've been hunting.
Right now, where Ellie is, right?
He's kidnapped a girl, and they need to know where she is because she might die. Okay, and so that's the scene that we're kind of watching here. And this is one of the cops, and there's another blonde guy that's the criminal. Okay, so let's just watch this, and we'll kind of come back and critique a few shots.
You took Ella away in your truck this afternoon. You told your wife you needed to hide her until things cool down. So why don't you just tell us right now where Ella is, right? Last chance. Where is she? Why would I give up the only leverage I've got right now? Leverage? You can't do that to me. You're cops. Give me a badge. Give me a badge.
Okay, so this is a beautiful Steadicam shot here. he walks off screen, and the next thing we cut to is the results. They find out through his beating up of the prisoner, they find out where the girl is buried. Let's just take a closer look at this, though, for 2 seconds here. Let me just kind of stop on a...
Right now.
Okay, so I go back to Parenti, and I'm looking at some of these bullet points, and maybe this one pops out here. The police and everyone else should be given a freer hand in combating the large criminal element in the United States, using generous applications of force and violence without too much attention to constitutional rights. Okay, so I feel like this scene it would be a great example of how this is operating in 2013. That's when this was from, in the spring, in our media culture. So the thing that I'd want to do is talk about how you can quote the dialogue exchange between this is Danny and the other officer, and how and then the dialogue between the prisoner. So you can quote dialogue. You can also describe how the uh, the prisoner is tied up with his hands behind his back. He's handcuffed to a chair, sitting as the two policemen are above him, looking down at him, probing him for questions. Now, he hasn't been arraigned. This is not done in a court of law. And so what you want to talk about here is that uh, that the constitutional rights of being innocent until proven guilty are being trampled here, and we're actually rooting for the constitutional rights to be trampled through this narrative by kind of taking the side of the police in this situation. And so what I want you to see is how Parenti's Parenti's points are kind of alive and well within this Hawaii Five-0 episode. Now, you might take 2 or 3 other examples. Maybe there's some of these other ones too, and you'd start to have build up a case that this one, and this one are present in this film and this TV show, and you would have a paragraph or two that describes the scene, quotes the dialogue, explains that it's trampling the constitutional rights of this person. And the other thing that's important, yes, he gives him his badge. That is a kind of nod that they're actually doing things that are off the books, but there's nothing that ever, he doesn't get punished at the end of the film. Remember, once again, I said, look at the ends, right? He doesn't get punished for what he does. He doesn't lose his job. He doesn't retire from the force. He is working the next day. And that's, once again, this kind of idea that we need to support the police with much more, well, and with much more kind of leeway. Okay, so I just wanted you to see how the stuff is operating. If you want to go back to the stuff that we looked at with, I'm going to mute his audio. Look at the camera work here. We're looking up at the police officer, and we look down at the criminal. Okay, it's another way that visually, see, we're looking up at him. It's a visual way that the authority is kind of given this visual authority, and we look down at the criminal. It's so you could also talk about how visually the camera work is supporting the same kind of point as well. So you want to quote the dialogue, you want to describe the scene. He's handcuffed to a chair, and they're asking him questions, and then they're totally kind of throwing aside the constitutional rights of this person, and we're meant to go with that. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a quick overview of that. Now, if you don't see these things, it's totally okay to say that these points, in fact, are not present in my show, and in fact, it's the opposite. And you could argue how the 3 of these things are not present. In fact, you would describe a scene where they do show collective effort, let's say, being preferable to individual effort. Okay, so if you see that, it's totally okay. Or you could argue that it's one. It's a combination of these things, although that's less interesting, I think. So really try and see if you can go one way or the other. You don't have to take on Parenti's viewpoint if you don't find it in his in the television show that you're watching. So the important thing is how you argue your points and how you draw from these examples to show that this is present or not present in the thing that you're looking at. Okay, so That's the key kind of points that I wanted to draw your attention to. As a fun aside, the guy that they just beat up there was this famous singer from this old punk band called Black Flag. So that's him right there as a young kid, just FYI. If you're interested in the punk movement, this is a cool doc that just came out, The Art of Punk, Black Flag, and it's about the person that makes the artwork for that band. It's a pretty interesting thing that you might enjoy. So that's a little note about ideological content, applying that Parenti essay to both the According to Jim and Hawaii 5.0. Hope that's helpful. Email me if you have any questions.